Hey, I'm Stephanie, and welcome to the Reading Room. This is a playlist where I review what I read in the last month and do my best to keep it spoiler-free, or at least I will warn you if I am about to spoil something. As I say in all my reviews, these are solely about the books and not about the authors as people. I'm sure they are all lovely. But before we do get into the reviews, I do want to talk about the atrocities that are happening across the country, especially in my home state of Minnesota. I am Minnesotan. I grew up there. I spent the first 21 years of my life there. I still have friends that call Minnesota home, and I am thinking about them all the time. If I talk with them too long, my Minnesotan accent does come back out, and oh yeah, you betcha, I'm talking about making some tater tot hot dish and making plans for visiting the cabin on the lake in the summer. Oh yeah. But truly, my heart is absolutely breaking for my home state and the fact that peaceful protesters and innocent people are dying. Like, the fact that anyone is dying because of this nasty abuse of power is bad enough, but especially people who are just practicing their rights. Process is not more important than people. Even if people have come into the country illegally, that does not warrant a death sentence. We cannot allow any governmental agency to act as judge, jury, and executioner. Now, over on my Instagram, I shared some resources, but I do want to mention one in particular that a friend from back home in Minnesota that they are using. It is iceout.org. This tracks operations so that people are aware of what is going on in their community. Again, my heart is with those that are back home. If it hasn't been clear by my reviews and stances on things, I do not side with what is happening. I side with the protesters, the resistance. I mean, books, shows, and movies are absolutely political. They show lives we'll never live, perspectives that we need to understand so we can build up our empathy. Stories teach us how to be human. They teach us why we need to have hope and goodness in the world and push back against regimes that operate on fear. Okay. I just wanted to say my piece and address it since that has been heavy on pretty much, I'm sure, everyone's minds right now. I am probably going to read more than ever and share these reviews because it is something that brings me happiness and a sense of normalcy, which I think we also do need. Because like we hear in the safety debrief on planes, you have to put on your oxygen mask before helping others. And this is my oxygen mask, and I definitely encourage you to keep up with hobbies or things that bring you happiness and bring some light and levity into your life, because otherwise the world is just too depressing right now. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the books that I read in the first month of 2026. I don't even think I can pick up my stack because I got through 12 books this month. Here we go. There we go. Got it. I was definitely a busy little bee with my reading this month, so I've got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first up was a horror read, as I was pretty horrified with how bad of a book that I ended December with. If you don't remember, that is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, which I did not love. So I picked up An Evil Premise by T. Marie Vandelly. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. I did get this with one of my Twisted Retreat book boxes. So let's go ahead and see what this one promised. When a bizarre accident leaves her sister, best-selling author Deirdre Baldwin, in a coma and suffering from a grotesque skin malady, Jewel rushes to her bedside. Though the sisters are not close, she is determined to do whatever she can for Deirdre. Staying in her sister's apartment, Jewel stumbles upon an unfinished manuscript, the one that Deirdre was rushing to complete for her publisher. When Deirdre's literary agent calls in a panic, Jewel, a self-published writer herself, desperate for a break, suggests she can finish it by the deadline. But the story is unsettling. It begins with a writer looking for inspiration, who finds an unclaimed manuscript. But said manuscript is just a series of protagonists who feel compelled to act out their heinous contributions to the grisly plot. Jewel is determined not to be scared off. She tries to tell herself she's being paranoid, but swears she can hear someone typing when she's not at the desk. And somehow, the word count of the novel keeps going up. Her skin begins to itch. Terrified of losing her sanity, but equally terrified of losing her one shot at success, Jewel tries to find a story somewhere in the carnage, even as her rash becomes worse, and she starts to have not-so-neighborly thoughts about her neighbors. Is this what happened to Deirdre? Did the manuscript drive her mad? Infect her somehow? Jewel finds herself hoping her sister never wakes up, and fearing what will happen if Deirdre does. So I gotta say, this was a ton of fun, had great jump scares, and I had no idea where this was going. I really also just love the meta elements in this. Like, even the preface had me hooked right away, as it told me this book would get under my skin. I would feel possessed and watched while reading this, and Vandelly carries that feeling throughout the novel. I can tell she had a lot of fun while writing this. This reminded me a bit of The Haunting of Hill House meets like any number of movies or shows about cursed objects. This has body horror and psychological dread and writers finding a manuscript that is cursed and trying to make it their own, but kind of damning themselves in the process. I enjoyed Jewel, our main character, and watching her try to unravel the mystery that is this manuscript and really just figure out, okay, what's real and what isn't, as she starts to freak out because those lines are starting to blur. She does flip-flop a lot in her motivation, but I did feel that it worked pretty well in this. I understood why she was changing her mind and changing it back, and I thought it weaved in her backstory quite well in this. My biggest criticism of this is that, one, the book's ending is just not my favorite, but it does work with the story. I just personally didn't love the direction this went. I felt a little let down with the ending when we start getting some of the reveals. I didn't expect the book to use a certain trope and was kind of disappointed that it did. And while I did like Vandelly's writing, I do think she is a strong writer. There were times that a sentence was trying to do so much that it just didn't make sense to me. Like, there were a few times I had to reread things because I didn't understand or felt that it wasn't very clear on what it was trying to say. But overall, I loved the first 90% of this as we watch a woman spiral into madness, but also think it's worth the cost to be inspired and continue with her writing. This was disturbing, disorienting, gory, haunting, and at times so unhinged, but in a good way. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought this was a wild ride, well written, and had a ton of fun horror elements sprinkled throughout. I also loved how it was about authors, sister authors at that, and the idea of a manuscript that at times can kind of write itself. I thought it was a pretty unique plot, and the meta-ness of it just deserves a second mention because I think that was just such a great touch. I will definitely be checking out her other work because this was a hit for me. So next up was a book that I took on the long drive to my family's house for Christmas, as the cover kind of gave me wintry vibes, but little did I know that this is set in Florida and Georgia. But whatever, I already had it with me, so I was going to read it, and that is Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. Let's see what this promised. 3 couples rent a luxury cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway to die for in this chilling, locked room thriller. What could be more restful, more restorative, than a weekend getaway with family and friends? An isolated luxury cabin in the woods, complete with spectacular views, a hot tub, and a personal chef. Hannah's loving and generous tech mogul brother found the listing online. The reviews are stellar. It's his birthday gift to Hannah and includes their spouses and another couple. The 6 friends need this trip with good food, good company, and lots of R&R, far away from the chatter and pressures of modern life. But the dreamy weekend is about to turn into a nightmare. A deadly storm is brewing. The rental host seems just a little too present. The personal chef reveals that their beautiful house has a spine-tingling history. And the friends have their own complicated past, with secrets that run blood deep. How well does Hannah know her brother, her own husband? Can she trust her best friend? And who is the new boyfriend crashing their party? Meanwhile, someone is determined to ruin the weekend, looking to exact a payback for deeds long buried. Who is the stranger among them? So if you can't tell, I didn't like this. This is not at all what I was expecting, and it just did not work for me. There are times that I will get books where it's not what I was expecting, but it ends up being so good that that's okay. This is not what I was expecting, and this is bad. I wanted a locked room murder mystery, but what I got was a 23andMe ad and lots and lots and lots of talk about DNA. I half expected Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park to pop out of the pages and become a character himself. Everyone in this is just weird, a bad person. I mean, they're all cheating on each other. There's also a character in this that is there just to be a red herring, and I could not care less about their plot or their story because they are a grade A creep. There was no point to their point of view being included besides to be all like, ooh, what are they doing now? Maybe they're more nefarious than they seem. I mean, yes, because they should be on some sort of government watch list, but they're not a criminal mastermind. There is another character who does fit the story, but like barely, and if their storyline was omitted, the book would have played out the exact same way. They had that little impact on the plot, but we spend so much time with them. Glad I got to read their point of view for pretty much no reason. This book is trying to do a lot, and it does very little to make it all work together. Like, there's even a ghost story thrown in. Why? Like, why is this needed? It really felt like as Unger was writing this, she would write something and be like, why not? It has way too much and doesn't know what to do with it all. I'll admit, I actually fell asleep while reading the last chapter or epilogue or whatever it was. I just did not care by the time I got there. Some of the reveals in this were just eye-rollingly bad or so cliche. And also on a structural level, there were so many words or phrases that were repeated that just made me want to send Unger a thesaurus, and we're constantly being reminded of things that we already know. And half the time, a character is about to tell another person something like pretty meaningful, but then the other character stops them or just lets the conversation drop. Are you kidding me? There was also a stylistic choice in this that just drove me up the wall, as some of the sentences are weirdly structured or they feel like they're missing like us and thus. Like, I even caught some typos in this. It really makes me wondering, like, did the editor also fall asleep or was the editing just really sparse on this? Now, to give some credit where it's due, I will say Unger was very good at creating tension among the characters, and the atmosphere is pretty good in this. I loved the vibes when we finally got to the secluded cabin. Now, I do want to give a fair warning that this book does cover some pretty triggering topics, such as the loss of a pregnancy, grooming and predatory online behaviors, someone taking their own life, and SA. There is also this beating drum about how you're only happy when you've procreated, which I didn't really love that message. Oh, and let's also not forget that there's some harm against animals. It is just alluded to. Thankfully, it is not on page, but just want to throw that out there. This book just covered some weird topics and themes that I was not expecting from something that bills itself as just like a locked room thriller. I just wanted a book with like family with secrets being locked in a cabin together. But I ended up hating all of these horrible people and didn't really care if they were all dead by the end. I was originally going to give this 2 stars because technically I did read it all the way through, even if it was a struggle to keep my eyes open and take in the words. But the more I think about it, the angrier I get. This was not good. The characters were not good, and so I had to drop my rating to a 1 star. I was not impressed with this, and this is my first impression of Unger's work. We're not off to a good start here, and there will be a wine club about this because I have to talk about some spoilery things, because, oh boy, this is bad. Bad. Okay, next up was Best Offer Wins by Marisa Kashino. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that last name. I had heard such good things about this, so I moved this up on my reading list, and I'm so glad I did. But let's go ahead and see what this promised. 18 months and 11 lost bidding wars into house hunting in the overheated Washington, D.C. suburbs, 37-year-old publicist Margot Miyake gets a tip about the perfect house, in the perfect neighborhood, slated to come up for sale in 1 month. Desperate to escape the cramped apartment she shares with her husband, Ian, and in turn get their marriage, plan to have a baby, and whole life back on track, Margot becomes obsessed with buying the house before it's publicly listed and the masses descend, with unbeatable all-cash offers in hand. A little stalking? Harmless. A bit of trespassing? Necessary. As Margot infiltrates the homeowners' lives, her tactics grow increasingly unhinged, but just when she thinks she's won them over, she hits a snag in her plan. Undeterred, Margot will prove again and again that there's no boundary she won't cross to seize the dream life she's been chasing. The most unsettling part? You'll root for her, even as you gasp in disbelief. Dark, biting, and laugh-out-loud funny, Best Offer Wins is a propulsive debut and a razor-sharp exploration of class, ambition, and the modern housing crisis. So if you haven't seen, I already have a Books and Bubbly about this because I could not control myself. I absolutely love this. I think this is unhinged in the best way possible. If you love obsessive, deranged main characters, this is the book for you. Margot will stop at nothing to get what she wants. She reminded me of the main characters in Listen for the Lie, My Darlings, and Play Nice. She's scathingly funny and just really does not have time for people who don't serve her. She is a woman on a mission, and you better not get in her way. She also kind of reminded me of Becky Bloomwood a bit as well, except instead of figuring out how she can buy more clothes, it's how she can get a $1.3 million house, and also make Becky way more obsessive, maniacal, and a bit sociopathic. But a lot of Margot's scheming just really felt like Becky if she had turned up her manipulation tactics by 10. I will say the book does get a bit over the top at times, but I think it nailed the tone for it. I completely bought into it, as well as buying into Margot's antics. I loved how diabolical she is and her unapologetic apathy. I loved watching her lose herself to her obsession of getting the perfect home. I was also laughing so much while I was reading this. I would read it aloud to my husband when we were in the car because it was just so funny. I truly had no idea where this story was going, and it was hilarious watching things escalate and go completely off the rails. I think my only other criticism is that the ending does feel a bit rushed and unrealistic in some aspects, but this definitely was not enough to ruin the overall reading experience for me. I read this in a day. I could not put it down. I thought this was fantastic, devious, and just so original. I truly, again, could not have guessed what Margot was going to do next. I was all in for this wild ride and having a blast the entire time. This is my first 5-star read of 2026. I absolutely loved this. This is a book that I would sell my soul to be able to read for the first time again, just because I thought it was so good. And I am also counting my lucky stars that my husband's in my house buying journey was nothing like Margot's. Now, I do want to provide one quick trigger warning that this does cover having trouble conceiving. If that could be hard for you to read, go into this cautiously, or please skip this one. Okay, moving on. This was a book that I took on my trip to Seattle, as this cover just screams read me in a forest setting. And this is Only One Survives by Hannah Mary McKinnon. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. All drummer Vienna Taylor ever wanted was to make music. If that came with fame, she'd take it, as long as her best friend, guitarist Madison Pierce, was sharing the spotlight and singing lead. And with their new all-female pop rock band gaining traction, soon everyone would hear their songs. Except, on the way to an event, the Bittersweets van careened off an icy mountain road during a blizzard, leaving one member dead and another severely injured. In order to survive the frigid night, the rest took shelter in a nearby abandoned cabin. But Vienna's dreams devolved into a terrifying nightmare as, one by one, her fellow band members met a gruesome end, and Madison simply vanished in the night. What really happened to the Bittersweet? Did Vienna's closest friend finally decide to take center stage on her own terms? She doesn't want to believe it. But guilty people run. Oh boy, this was something. Again, I was excited for a locked room murder mystery, but what I got was flashbacks. We barely even spend any time in this cabin where people are dying. This book is way more focused on the toxic friendship between Madison and Vienna and how they form their band while leaving their crappy families. This kind of reminded me of a bad Freida McFadden read. When we get the twist, I'm more mad than impressed that I didn't see it coming, because it's an ass pull. When I got to that point, I actually just closed the book for a bit and just sat there staring, because I was like, please tell me this is not what we're actually doing. And we get that twist at 65% in. I had no idea what could continue to happen in the story, but then it just goes back and explains everything with a new lens, but that new lens is smeared in dog poo. And there's also this huge focus on hashtag Team Madison and hashtag Team Vienna, a war on social media, that I could not give a rat's ass about the social media aspect of it. It was stupid, as was the obsession of gaining adoring fans. I was just not pleased with the direction this book took, how much time was spent in the past when, again, I wanted a locked room murder mystery. And even the final twist is kind of laughable. I'm very disappointed with this read. I did not like the structure and focus on the past. Some of the dialogue was also not great in this, and I really hated the major twist because there wasn't much setup for it. It came out of nowhere. This is also a tiny niggle and probably won't bother anyone but me, but it was very apparent that the author is not American and is writing American characters. Now, nothing wrong with that. But there are a ton of Britishisms and UK spellings of things that just took me out of the story. Like, if you're going to write American characters, then commit to the US version of the English alphabet and how we say things. And I do see that the author is from the UK, so it makes sense, but I just feel like editing should have fixed some of that. This was not the book for me. Now, it may be the book for you if you like slow burn mysteries and ones that are more focused on like the dynamics between people, especially unreliable narrator types. But based on the description, that's not what I was expecting. I ultimately only gave this 1 star. It does have some really good reviews on Goodreads, so maybe I'm the one who's just missing something, but I did not enjoy this. Though, to my own credit, Geneva Rose is blurbed on the cover, and that really should have been a warning to me that I was probably not going to enjoy this if she enjoyed it. Which is a pity, because this had a really good premise, just the execution was not there. Next up was another thriller that featured writers, which is a subgenre that I love, and that is Someone Knows by Vi Keeland. Vi Keeland, I believe it's Vi, but I could be saying that completely wrong. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. Professor Davis knows that everyone has a story, and she'll teach you how to tell yours, as long as you don't ask about her own past. But someone knows. So grab a pen and some paper, get ready to take notes, because the truth is, this story is far from over. So this started off so good, and then it just became a mess. This lost the plot and my attention the further I got into it. I really struggled to connect with our main character because she seems more focused on finding a man to bring home than figuring out who knows her secret. And it's a pretty big secret. And when she starts unraveling things, it just really goes off the rails. And everyone is a suspect, and she's suspicious of them and can't trust them, but then still hangs out and sleeps with some of them? Like, girl. Like, she seems to be the type that would be cast in Slytherin House, which is saying something because I'm a Slytherin. Like, we're supposed to be cunning. But then the plot also requires her to be an idiot so much of the time. Like, she makes these half-assed attempts to figure out who's messing with her, and I just wanted her to do more. Take charge in solving this mystery instead of having her go to bars and having every single male character tell her how unbelievably hot she is. Seriously, every single man compliments her looks in this book. So basically in the book, like, someone knows her secret and is sending her a story about Professor Davis's story. And it just was kind of strange because there's so many details in these chapters that she's being sent, but Professor Davis barely questions how anyone could know the story this intimately, and like that doesn't raise any alarms for you. We then get a twist that I saw coming from a mile away, but it also breaks the story a bit. The story then has to like bend over backwards explaining itself, but it also doesn't, and there are some things that are just glossed over or never unpacked properly. Or characters apparently died off screen because they're a suspect, but then we never see them again. It was nice knowing you throwaway characters. The final twist in this, like, is frustrating because it both annoyed me and it also redeemed the story a bit. I'm still not sure how I feel about it, but it did bring the rating up to 2.5 stars. The pacing in this is pretty good. It's a quick, easy read. I think it is well written, and I was interested in the mystery. I just wanted Professor Davis to be as interested in solving the mystery as I was. This started out so well and then just kind of fizzled, which was a shame. Now, I do want to provide a warning that this deals with grooming, DV, loss of a pregnancy, alcoholism and addiction, and the death of a parent. This also has some like 50 Shades of Grey vibes and levels of fucked upness to it. Do with that what you will, but I was just not expecting the direction that this book kind of ended up going. All right, next up, I needed a change of pace, and I picked up a book that I've had my eye on for a while, as I know it has become a series and people seem to really enjoy it, and that is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. Finlay Donovan is killing it, except she's really not. As a stressed-out single mom of 2 and a struggling novelist, Finlay finds her life in chaos. When Finlay is overheard discussing the plot of her new suspense novel with her agent over lunch, she's mistaken for a contract killer and inadvertently accepts an offer to dispose of a problem husband. Finlay soon discovers that crime in real life is a lot more difficult than its fictional counterpart, as she becomes tangled in a murder investigation. Fast-paced, deliciously witty, and wholeheartedly authentic in depicting the frustrations and triumphs of motherhood, Finlay Donovan is Killing It is the first in a brilliant new series from award-winning author Elle Cosimano. So this also reminded me of the early Confessions of a Shopaholic book, which is a huge compliment in my world. It's kind of zany, it nails the fun tone, and it just has a pretty fun, resourceful, eccentric, and quick-on-her-feet protagonist who also has a heart of gold. I just found this to be really fun and funny. Now, can it be a bit exaggerated and ridiculous? Oh yeah, but that's the point, and since it nailed the tone, I bought into it. I really like the setup of her as a struggling author and using her skills to solve the mystery that she finds herself in, and using it as inspiration for her book, even though she knows that's a terrible idea. She's balancing her career, motherhood, handling a divorce, and now being a contract killer. I did really like the relationship between her and Veronica or Vero, as there's a lot of tension in their friendship, as they push each other's buttons at times, but I just think their dynamic really works and it adds something to the story. I also really did like the relationship between Finlay and her sister Georgia. I think my biggest criticism is the relationship she has with the men. The romance elements in this. There are 2 romantic relationships in this, and it just felt like overkill. I kind of liked the first one because it was cute and fun, but then the second love interest showed up and is immediately into Finlay, and it kind of pulled me out of the story. Finlay is supposed to be a vampire in yoga pants and kind of a hot mess, but every man who lays eyes on her wants her immediately. And I also found the second love interest to be trying way too hard, and then I also thought he was just kind of a dick in certain sections. For me, the romance elements just really slowed the story down. I don't think we needed 2 of them, and some of their banter felt really forced and cringy instead of being cute and flirty. And then both of these guys could expose her or figure out her role in the killing, but no, she really wants to kiss a guy, so she'll make dumb choices so she can hang out with these guys. Just make it make sense. So not only were there times where she's going out of her way to be an idiot, there are other times where she couldn't figure out things that were glaringly obvious, which was kind of funny because she could piece together some teeny tiny clues that were very obscure, but then there's a scene where it takes her forever to realize what is really going on, and I was just so frustrated that it was being dragged out. And also, girl, would it kill you to put on some gloves and tie her hair back so you're not leaving evidence everywhere? She says she has a very incriminating search history because she does so much research for her novels about, how to get away with murder. But then later is shocked, I tell you, when the detective is looking at soil samples and tire tracks to use as evidence. Finn, just put on some forensic files, just have it on in the background so you can learn a thing or 2. But overall, I really enjoyed the cast of characters in this. I thought the mystery was really fun, and this knew what it wanted to be and got the job done. It was not trying to be something it wasn't, and just had a lot of fun with it. This is quite farcical at times, and is essentially a comedy of errors. The tone kind of reminded me of Death at a Funeral, if you've seen that movie, the original one. I enjoyed this, and can definitely see myself picking up the next in this series, because I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, next up was a highly anticipated read, and that is Mr. Magic by Kiersten White. I'd read the little preview of this when I finished Hide by White and was immediately sucked into the story and knew I had to get myself a copy. Let's see what this promised. In the 30 years since a tragic accident shut down production of the classic children's program, Mr. Magic, the 5 surviving cast members have done their best to move on. But just as generations of cultishly devoted fans still cling to the lessons they learned from the show, the cast, known as the Circle of Friends, have spent their lives searching for the happiness they felt while they were on it. The friendship, the feeling of belonging, and the protection of Mr. Magic. But with no surviving video of the show, no evidence of who directed or produced it, and no records of who or what the beloved host actually was, memories are all the formal circle of friends have. Then, a twist of fate brings the castmates back together at the remote desert filming compound that feels like it's been waiting for them all this time. Even though they haven't seen each other for years, they understand one another better than anyone has since. After all, they're the only ones who hold the secret of that circle, the key to the mystery of the Magic Man and his infinitely black cape, and maybe the answers to what really happened on that deadly last day. But as the circle of friends reclaim parts of their past, they begin to wonder, are they here by choice, or have they been lured into a trap? Because magic never forgets the taste of your friendship. So this book really gave me We Used to Live Here vibes, married with the Berenstein Bears debacle, which I know sounds really weird, but I remember, I swear, it was Berenstein, not Berenstain. But this is about a children's TV show that exists, but only in memories. People remember it, but they cannot find any evidence of it. And the kids from the show are reunited, and things are just so weird right off the bat. Again, this is another book that I loved the first 90%, and then the ending is good, but it also left me feeling okay. I loved the mystery and the intrigue and answering the question of what the fuck is going on with this children's show. This is Stepford Wives meets a magic children's show. It's eccentric and absurd, and I wanted more. I wanted to understand what was going on. And by the end, I kind of do, but I also don't. It's culty, it's magical, it's talking about the magic of childhood and some of the trauma that can come from a childhood that's a performance and not a real experience. I found that this tackled some really complex themes, but at times I will admit I lost the plot and the message. There is a hopeful note at the end, but it is very bittersweet. Now, I will say, definitely read the acknowledgements at the end, as it does help explain some things and provides a lot of context. I think I just maybe wish that some of that context had been a bit more clear or more resolved in the book itself, but maybe that's also the point. There are many things in life that aren't resolved, and yet we still have to keep moving forward. To me, this book was kind of wild. I loved the supernatural horror and existential elements in this. I loved how eerie it was, and I could get behind our main character, Val. Though there were times that it got a bit repetitive when she was questioning herself and her choices, when she's made out to be this defiant, bossy person. There are also times she's trying to get answers and people just do not answer her questions, and she just kind of lets it go. Val, go hound them, get your answers, corner them, get in their face. You are supposed to be stubborn and always get what you want, but not when it seems to matter the most. This book also does have a mixed media format that I thought worked really well, because we'll get excerpts of online forums, discussion threads, Reddit posts of people talking about the show and how people remember it. But at the same time, they also can't remember it because it's just this fleeting memory. It was just a really fun inclusion of the Mandela effect, and kind of gave me the same feelings that I used to have when I would read creepypasta. Now, I do think if the ending had been a bit more solid, maybe a few more things had been answered, I probably would have rated this 5 stars. I just feel there are some plot holes or some things that needed more explaining. But at the same time, I could not put this down, and I was just so into how bizarre this was. There are feelings of desperation in this that just add to the horror elements. There's a desperation to go back to those happy times in childhood, the desperation to fix what was broken, the desperation to be perfect and good, the desperation to program children and make them what you want them to be instead of letting them be who they are. But at what cost? I'm still going to give this 4 stars because I think this was a good read. It's just the ending that left me feeling that's it. Bittersweet is the best way I can describe the ending. Now, I do want to provide a content warning that this does go into religion and potentially religious trauma that can come from strict religious upbringings. If that could be hard for you to read, probably best to stay away from this. Okay, next up was a highly anticipated read, as everyone has been raving about it on Instagram. and that is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I will admit this is my first read by Feeney, even though I have at least one of her other titles on my TBR shelf. I might even have two, but let's go ahead and see what this one promised. One house, one husband, two women. Someone is lying. Eden Fox, an artist on the brink of her big break, sets off for a run before her first exhibition. When she returns to the home she recently moved into, Spyglass, an enchanting old house in Hope Falls, nothing is as it should be. Her key doesn't fit. A woman eerily similar to her answers the door, and her husband insists the stranger is his wife. 6 months earlier, a reclusive Londoner called Bertie, reeling from a life-changing diagnosis, inherits Spyglass. This unexpected gift from a long-lost grandmother brings her to the pretty seaside village of Hope Falls. But then Bertie stumbles upon a shadowy clinic that claims to be able to predict a person's date of death, including her own. Secrets start to unravel, and as the line between truth and lie blurs, Bertie feels compelled to right some old wrongs. My Husband's Wife is a tangled web of deception, obsession, and mystery that will keep you guessing until the last page. Prepare yourself for the ultimate mind-bending marriage thriller and step inside Spyglass, if you dare, to experience a story where nothing is as it seems. Okay, so I can see why Feeney is so popular. This book had me hooked and my curiosity was piqued. All I could think of is, what is going on here? This book is addicting, it's well written, and it definitely keeps you guessing. There's a lot of paranoia and unsettling vibes in this. I thought the pacing was great. The setting is super fun too. There's this interesting subplot about a company that can predict the day you'll die, and I loved that concept, but I don't feel like we did that much with it here, and the payoff for it is kind of blah. There's also this focus on the Day of the Dead celebrations, yet it doesn't take place in Mexico. I'd buy All Saints Day, but it felt a bit jarring that they steal Day of the Dead, but then say it's a Cornwall thing. And maybe it is, maybe that's my own weird stuff showing, but it felt kind of weird for me. I'm still giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this, and I thought for sure it was going to be a solid 4-star read, maybe even 4.5. But then we get to the reveals, and oh boy, did they annoy me. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, so I will just say that it felt very Freida McFadden when we get to the twists, and it pulled a tactic that I absolutely loathe in thrillers. The twists also just kind of kept building in their unbelievability as well. I feel like Chandler Bing when he finds out that Phoebe has a dog in their apartment and he's been lying that he's allergic. So when he finds out that the dog has been there all week, he's trying to make it sound like he's having a reaction and goes, "Really?" That is how I felt when we started getting the exposition dumps that explains everything. But also not everything, because I still have some lingering questions and I feel there are things that just don't add up. Again, overall, I enjoyed this and it held my interest because it was suspenseful, and I had absolutely no idea how these different story threads were going to be woven together. They do come together, but it was a little too convoluted and too over the top for my personal taste. I felt more misled when we get to the twists because they did not feel earned, and for me the foundation just wasn't laid properly for them. I don't like it when an author feels like they got one over on me because I couldn't guess the twists. It's purely the shock factor for these twists, and that's just not fun for me. I feel cheated because the twists aren't necessarily clever, I've just been lied to. The characters aren't just lying to the readers. This requires them to lie to themselves. It just doesn't make much sense in the story. To me, anyone can write a story where characters are lying, but to have a twist hiding in plain sight while not lying, writing that takes talent. I expected more from a seasoned author. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I would prefer one amazing twist than 5 shocking and unguessable twists. Just doesn't do it for me. Now, I do want to provide content warnings that this book does deal with taking one's own life and cheating. There were also some open door scenes that didn't really add much to the plot or characterization in my opinion, but do with that what you will. Again, 3.5. I was loving this until I suddenly didn't. But I do see the appeal of Feeney, and I actually am pretty excited. I think I've got Beautiful Ugly on my shelf that I still need to read, so I am pretty excited for it. But if it also pulls the same kind of twist as this, then I probably won't be continuing with her work. Okay, next up was another book that has been on my to-be-read shelf for quite a while, and I wanted to change a pace, so I picked up Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. Authors June Hayward and Athena Liu were supposed to be twin rising stars, but Athena's a literary darling. June Hayward is a literal nobody. Who wants stories about basic white girls, June thinks. So when June witnesses Athena's death in a freak accident, she acts on impulse. She steals Athena's just-finished masterpiece, an experimental novel about the unsung contributions of Chinese laborers during World War I. So what if June edits Athena's novel and sends it to her agent as her own work? So what if she lets her new publisher rebrand her as Juniper Song, complete with an ambiguously ethnic author photo? Doesn't this piece of history deserve to be told whoever the teller? That's what June claims, and the New York Times bestseller list seems to agree. But June can't get away from Athena's shadow, and emerging evidence threatens to bring June's stolen success down around her. As June races to protect her secret, she discovers exactly how far she will go to keep what she thinks she deserves. With its totally immersive first-person voice, Yellowface grapples with questions of diversity, racism, and cultural appropriation, as well as the terrifying alienation of social media. R.F. Kuang's novel is timely, razor-sharp, and eminently readable. So holy shit, this was wild. Like, I actually just have to read Constant Wu's praise on the inside cover because I think it just perfectly encapsulates how I'm feeling about it. Okay. So, reading Yellowface felt like being inside a wild, brutal, psychological knife fight with a deranged clown, a merciless satire that left me screaming inside, from both its horror and humor. That is completely spot on. And apparently 2026 is the year I am letting my freak flag fly with what I'm reading because this is delightfully unhinged and I really liked this. Between this and Best Offer Wins, I'm not sure which main character would best the other in a fight, like who is more deranged here. This book is dark humor, it's satire, and I could not put this down. I read this in a day. I stayed up until 1:15 in the morning the night I started reading it because I just couldn't get enough. June, our main character, is irredeemable, but she makes for a very fascinating character. The mental gymnastics that she has to do to make herself look like the victim and the winner at the same time is truly something to behold. June is insecure, but also arrogant. She's jealous, pretentious, self-obsessed, obnoxious, deluded, and honestly, a lot of her thoughts and actions are just simply grotesque. It is both fascinating and horrifying to watch her dig herself deeper into this hole, yet also think she is the best thing since sliced bread. Her justifications for her actions were appalling, yet darkly humorous. I wanted to punch June, but I also wanted to leave her be to see what blunder she would make next. We also have Athena, who isn't the picture-perfect girl her readers are sold. There's a point where June brings up the fact that Athena doesn't understand, how some things are super expensive because she's never had to worry about things like that. I just really appreciate that these characters are complex and they have some serious flaws. They are both thieves in a sense. June is an idea thief and Athena is kind of a trauma vampire. And they are both so entitled. Athena does not acknowledge her privilege and class, and June kind of feels she is owed success and fame simply because she is passionate about writing. She even makes a point to say that, quote, taking Athena's manuscript felt like reparations, payback for the things Athena took from me. June, what the fuck? Like the social commentary around the publishing industry, identity, performing for social media, cancel culture, and chasing validation were at times uncomfortable to read, but also so eye-opening and true to life. The characters and situations are exasperating, but they are supposed to be. There was a quote that I absolutely loved in this. What more can we want as writers than such immortality? Don't ghosts just want to be remembered? I'm giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I thought this was brilliant, audacious, and quite gripping. Again, I could not put this down. I love the satire, the humor, and the horror in a sense, and I loved the questions that it raises. Now, I do want to say I did listen to a critique by Read with Cindy, whose content I really enjoy, and I found that she brought up some really good points that differ from my own, and she shared some insights about Kuang that added some of the context to like the lower rated reviews that I'd seen on Goodreads. It was very interesting to see a critique that pointed out the similarities to Kuang and Athena in the story, and how Kuang's upbringing and affluence kind of helped her have a very different publishing experience and a different understanding of wealth and privilege. Now, even though I liked the book, I did appreciate hearing the critique and appreciated having a different perspective on the book and the experience that different readers will have with it. I enjoyed this, but definitely check out the reviews if you're on the fence for this, because you might have a reading experience more similar to Cindy, or you might have a reading experience similar to mine. Okay, next up was another thriller that has been on my TBR for forever, and with the movie coming out, I finally picked it up, and that is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Let's see what this promised. Every day, I clean the Winchesters' beautiful house, top to bottom. I pick up their daughter from school, and I cook a delicious meal for the whole family before heading up to eat alone in my tiny room on the top floor. I try to ignore how Nina makes a mess just to watch me clean it up, how she tells strange lies about her own daughter, and how her husband, Andrew, seems more broken every day. But as I look into Andrew's handsome brown eyes, so full of pain, it's hard not to imagine what it would be like to live Nina's life. The walk-in closet, the fancy car, the perfect husband. I try on one of Nina's pristine white dresses once, just to see what it's like. But she soon finds out, and by the time I realize my attic bedroom door only locks from the outside, it's far too late. But I reassure myself, the Winchesters don't know who I really am. They don't know what I'm capable of. And then there's also this tagline on the front, from behind closed doors, she sees everything. That's simply not true. She's not seeing shit. She has no idea what's going on in this house. So I will definitely say this is a stereotypical McFadden book. She knows how to keep me turning the pages with her short chapters, and overall I did like this. And the twist, I will say, actually felt logical, unlike some of the twists in like Never Lie, and I think it was One by One, which I really did not like. But I'm still salty about Never Lie. That book pissed me off. But I do think that the twist did really work here, and I also read this in a day. But I do have some things that I did not love. Like, first up, this requires an idiot plot. Our main character is an idiot. There's a point where she says phones have translator apps to help her understand the hot gardener who only speaks Italian. Does she use one, like, ever? No, she does not. And she's always speaking Spanish to him as if the languages are interchangeable. Are there some words that are similar? Yes. Are they both Latin-based languages? Yes. But it also felt pretty racist to have Millie know he's Italian, and she's always like, hola! Like, that's not the word they use for hello. Funnily enough, I did watch a review of this book in Italian, and the Italian reader did not enjoy this book, so it was kind of funny watching her, like, rip this apart. Another thing I don't like is I know McFadden has to be smart. She's a physician, and I think she specializes in brain injuries. And yet, she cannot write an intelligent main character, and it drives me up the fucking wall. I really did not like how McFadden treats her readers like idiots as well. There is so much hand-holding and explaining the same things 9 million times. I get it. I am not as stupid as your main characters. It just gets very repetitive, and it kind of hurts my eyes. Like, when Millie first sees the room, because, okay, like, it's too late, she notices that this doesn't lock, like, on, like, the first day. But she's walking around, and, like, she sees the scratches on the door, and, like somebody was scraping at the door, trying to get out. Gee, you think seeing fingernail scratches in the door is foreboding? Like, no shit. There's also, there's something in his expression that sends a chill down my spine. And then he shakes his head, almost imperceptibly. Almost like he's trying to warn me. Almost like he's trying to warn you. Like, no, duh, we get it. He's shaking his head no. What do you think that means? And then there is also the dreaded line of, she let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. I mean, that's just bad writing. And then there was this really weird line that just completely took me out of the story. The pediatrician says there's a set of shots she requires next month for diseases she doesn't even have. Well, yeah, that's how vaccines work, to help people not get sick. The vaccine won't do much if she's already caught the certain disease. Again, this woman's a doctor. Now again, the writing in this is easy to read for sure, but it was also too simplistic. Now again, to give credit where it's due, I do think that this is a quick, easy read. McFadden definitely has some sort of psychological hold on people because she can get you to read her books. And I will say I did find Millie pretty funny. Like, her comments about, like, creepy kids and waspy moms was spot on and quite funny. And this is entertaining. And it was better than I expected, having been disappointed by McFadden in the past, as the twists in this didn't come out of left field and I felt like they actually made sense with the story. This was good, but not the best thriller I've ever read. I'm giving this 3 stars because it ultimately did hold my attention and was logical, which is a huge win for a McFadden book. I can see why this is becoming a movie, and honestly, this is probably the better McFadden I've read, so congratulations. So I will say I am not going to continue with the Housemaid series. I know there's 2 more. I did watch spoilery reviews by Read Rant Review. I really enjoy her content, and so since I know what's going to happen, I don't really feel compelled to pick them up, and I just didn't trust McFadden to keep up with it. Again, I've read a lot of her work, so I just expected like this to kind of go down the drain, and it kind of sounds like the next 2 in the series kind of do. Okay, next up was The Clinic by Cate Quinn, because this cover is absolutely stunning. This felt like so moody. We were getting snow. It was cold. I was like, ooh, look at this big, thick guy. This will be perfect to read when I'm stuck inside. Let's see why I thought that. Meg works for a casino in LA, catching cheaters and popping a few too many pain pills to cope. Following a far different path than her sister, Haley, a famous actress. She's not an actress. I don't know why is this already lying. But suddenly, reports surface of Haley dying at the remote rehab facility where she had been forced to go to get her addictions under control. There are whispers of suicide, but Meg can't believe it. She decides that the best way to find out what happened to her sister is to check in herself, to investigate what really happened from the inside. Battling her own addictions and figuring out the truth will be much more difficult than she imagined, far away from friends, family, and anyone who could help her. So first up, I want to say that I appreciated the author's note about this being her first work being sober. That is amazing for Quinn. I hope she is so proud of herself, and I hope she is doing very well on her sobriety journey. There are also some moments in this that felt very authentic, and I'm sure her experiences with rehab have a lot to do with that. That said, I don't think this book is very good. I started skimming at like the 200-page mark, and I wanted to DNF this so bad, but I also wanted to know what was really going on. I should have DNF'd. The pacing in this is atrocious. This book is a lot longer than it needs to be, as it's over 400 pages, and the characterization in this is just not great. Our main girl Meg is supposed to be manipulative and truly have an amazing poker face as she hustles hustlers, but she is reckless, impulsive, and brash. How in the world is she good at her job? And she thinks she'll just do her own investigation into her sister's death, but has like 0 detective instincts. The entire plot kind of falls apart because of Meg's motivation. She wants to prove her sister did not take her own life, but they're also kind of estranged. Meg doesn't even really seem to care about Haley or seem to like her that much. And she also makes a point to constantly remind us of how little she remembers her childhood. Does this come into play? Nope. But are we going to hear about it constantly? Yep. There's also barely any stakes in this. We're constantly told that if she misses group sessions or therapy, she's going to be kicked out, yet she's always blowing off therapy and it's not a problem. Don't do it again or you'll have to leave. She does it again. Oh gosh, you got us. Don't do it again. It'd be hard for Meg to keep investigating if she gets kicked out. You think she would play along better, but no. And there are some plot holes or contrivances, like her having access to a cell phone. Like, apparently she, hid it in her armpit, but she also had, basically a cavity search, and they never found this. How she hid that or other things she sneaks in is wild. But we need her to have those things for the story to happen, so just, okay. So our main characters are Meg, and then we also follow this admin named Kara. Kara's sections could have been cut completely. I did not care for her, and the story is more about Meg anyway. They barely interact, and they both get told basically the twist at the same time. I would have loved it if her chapters were cut, because then the book would have been so much shorter, and the same thing would have played out the exact same way. There are also 2 cop characters that are stereotypical country folk talking about apple pie and how they don't understand all this fancy therapy stuff. And the therapy stuff, it's said to be a very fancy, very nice facility, yet it has like 2 doctors, 1 admin, and a few faceless nurses for 6 patients. It's astounding, and by that I mean convenient for the plot, that Meg was even able to get into this facility in the first place. It's a luxury place and it caters to celebrities, but sure, let this random woman who works at a casino get in so the plot can happen. There's also supposed to be this found family aspect to this, and normally I love that, but it is not done very well in this. It goes from hate and annoyance to Fast and the Furious 10 levels of this is my family, and it wasn't earned. Like, we never see Meg breaking down and like accepting these people. It goes from you annoy me to I love you and I would die for you. Okay? I also have to say, if I got $1 for every adjective in this book, I'd probably have about $1,000. I would love to make some money back by doing some editing for Quinn on this. Like, there are some words missing, or the wrong word is used. She meant to say a character was confident with an E, but spells it confidant, like someone you confide into. Like, there was a point that I seriously started to wonder, like, was this actually edited? The first sentence in her acknowledgments is missing a word. Oh my God. And then I almost died laughing when I read the conversation with the author, where the first question starts off with the praise that this is a heart-pounding thriller. Is that thriller in the room with us? Because it sure as shit is not this particular book. I also really hated the chapter breaks in this. Like, a chapter is 4 pages, and sometimes the next chapter is just a continuation of the same scene and point of view. Why did we split them up? I'm really sorry. This book was a mess. I appreciate what the author was trying to do here, but this is just too boring. And then the twists at the end are way too over the top for this type of story. I also felt I could tell when Quinn was getting tired of writing this, as things are suddenly getting very convenient and 2 characters will be having a conversation about a twist, and suddenly 2 different characters are talking about the exact same thing, but it doesn't make logical sense because there was no information sharing between them. And one character makes a decision that just does not fit with their characterization at all, just so we can get to the ending and just so we can make it easy. Like, ultimately, I don't even know if I want to do a wine club for this, mostly because I was so bored and skimming, and that's all I really have to say about this. I was bored, and the twists were just odd, and some of the things around like addiction and mental health felt a little odd to me too. The direction this ends up going in isn't bad necessarily, but it wasn't built up to at all. And I feel terrible giving this 1 star because I want to support Quinn's sober writing journey, as that is a huge accomplishment. But at the same time, I want to be honest with this review, and I'm sorry, but this is a 1-star book. This just was not great. I do wish Quinn the best, and I hope she continues writing and growing in her craft, but I'm sorry, this was just not it. Whew. Okay, my last read for January was Keep Your Friends Close by Leah Konen. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. Isolated and embroiled in a custody battle, Mary is desperate for a friend. So when she meets the charming and enigmatic Willa at a Brooklyn playground, their connection feels faded. But during a margarita-fueled mom's night out, Mary shares her darkest secret about her ex, George, and the next morning, Willa simply disappears. No calls, no texts, nothing. 2 months later, Mary's divorce is almost finalized, and she's trying to build a new life for her son in upstate New York. On her first day in town, she runs into Willa. Only Willa's name is now Annie, and she's got an entirely new family in tow. When George turns up dead and Mary becomes the prime suspect, she has no choice but to turn to her only friend in town, Willa. As coincidences and evidence pile up, Mary begins to wonder whether Willa had something to do with George's death. Is the woman a friend or a foe? A confidant or just a con? Mary must uncover the truth before she loses everything. So I gotta say, this was fine. I've read Konen before, and I have really enjoyed her work, and I think this has to be the weakest read by her, unfortunately. This is repetitive, it has thin characterization, and it just feels very forced in a sense. Like, it's trying to tie everything together in a twisty way, but it just feels too convenient in the end. And it also does something that probably bugs no one else but me, but things are repeated thrice, like David Rose requesting towels. Like, it'd be one thing if it was one character who just did this, but both of our main characters do this. Ugh, drives me up the wall. I also have to say, Mary is kind of a boring protagonist. We are told that she was a journalist before giving up her career after marrying Rich and having her son, but you would never know it because she has no investigative skills whatsoever. Why make her a journalist when she can't figure stuff out nor ask good questions? She jumps to wild conclusions, makes rash and dumb decisions, and is a terrible liar. And I know I drink a lot of wine, but Mary puts me to shame. She is constantly opening a bottle of wine and pouring herself a glass or 8. Now, I will say Willa is a bit more interesting as she knows who she is and is honest about her lies, if that makes sense. The men in this book are cartoonishly evil, and some of the themes around bad men are blatantly spelled out, and it got very heavy-handed. Like, trust me, I'm a straight woman. I know some men are the worst, and some are the best. But all the men in this book are the absolute worst. There were also some spicy scenes in this that kind of made me uncomfortable, because it is said that the characters consented, but it didn't feel that way to me, and it kind of felt gross, and like I just don't think they were necessary for the book to progress the way it did. There's also this jewelry subplot that felt kind of cheesy at times, like a wannabe Ocean's 8 or heist movie. And given how rich these people are, wouldn't that shit be insured? So like, why is this such like a major plot point? Why are we following this thread the entire time? And I don't know. This was just kind of messy. It wants to show that rich people suck, but kind of fails to deliver on that message with the ending. It wanted to be female empowerment, but also never nailed the message it was trying to send there either. And when we get all of our twists and reveals and hidden motivations, one was just laughably bad. Hate to say it, but I'm giving this 2.5 stars. It's fine. It's a story. It follows a structure, but I didn't love this. I never felt compelled to pick this up and race through it. It is an easy read. I think this only took me like 2 days, but it's just disappointing because I know Konen can write better than this. I didn't hate it, didn't skim it. I did finish it, but will I remember this book in 6 months? Highly doubtful. Okay, that wraps up all that I read in January. I feel like I got through quite a bit. I mean, granted, I was sick for like 2 weeks, so I do feel like that really helped speed things up. And then with like the snow, I was stuck inside. So I got through quite a lot more than I expected, especially compared to like my December reading room video. Whew. But I am looking forward to all the books that I have stacked up for February. But if you do have any recommendations of what I should add to that stack, please let me know by leaving a comment below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me in the reading room, and I will see you next month.